Silent stars, stolen daughters. The stars above Earth were calm. For once, no wars, no plagues, no enemies. Humanity had done the impossible, unified under one banner, and reached the stars. The Terran Accord oversaw dozens of thriving colonies across nearby systems. And for the first time in history, humans weren't fighting each other. Then they came. No warships, no announcements, just silence, and then screams. It started on Mars. A research team stationed at the Helios crater went dark during a routine shift. At first, Earth Command suspected a solar flare, but satellite footage revealed a different story. A sleek, black vessel hovered above the base for 13 seconds. Then it vanished. No trace left behind, except for the absence of 7 young women, all interns, all gone without a sound. Within 24 hours, similar incidents hit 5 more locations. A space station over Europa, a diplomatic academy on Luna, 2 colonies in the Proxima system, and 1 remote outpost on Ganymede. The pattern was unmistakable. They weren't attacking infrastructure. They were targeting people, specifically human girls between the ages of 14 and 25. Scientists, students, diplomats' daughters. No weapons fired. No one else touched. Just taken. The Terran Accord held emergency sessions. Leaders from every colony linked in, shock painted across every screen. Reports came in faster than could be processed. 49 missing in under 2 days. Surveillance networks tracked strange energy signatures disappearing into uncharted space. Then came the final insult, silence from the Galactic Council. Earth's ambassador pleaded for answers, demanding to know if the Council was aware of the kidnappings. The response was chilling. "This is not an affair worth our attention," a Xerath official declared, his image cold and distant on the interstellar relay. "Your species is new. Such events are expected during integration." Integration? Ambassador Reyes's voice trembled as she responded. "You're saying this is normal?" The feed cut. In orbit above the dead world of Xuron Prime, far beyond known human space, the truth festered. Inside a massive stasis chamber, aboard a Xerath research ship, 17 human girls lay unconscious, sealed in glowing pods. Their vitals were stable. Monitored. Tested. High Lord Skrell paced behind the glass, his 4 amber eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Such genetic fluidity," he murmured to his aide. "Their species was not properly cataloged. The females carry adaptability markers we've only seen in class. 7 survival organisms." "Fascinating." The aide, smaller and duller in stature, bowed low. "Shall we begin the breeding trials, my lord?" Skrell's lips curled into what could only be described as a smile. "Yes, prepare them. Humanity will serve a higher purpose, whether they agree or not." Back on Earth, the skies turned quiet. No news was released. No statements. No retaliation. It was the first time in a century the Terran Accord went completely dark. General Elias Vorn stood at the edge of a war room buried under Mount Tion in New Asia, watching the footage again. His jaw clenched every time his daughter's face appeared. Maria Vorn, age 19, engineering prodigy, vanished from a lunar research camp. There was no body, no goodbye, just a blinking red alert, and then nothing. Across the room, intelligence officers worked in silence, their eyes bloodshot, their hands trembling with barely contained fury. A picture of one of the captured girls had been taped to each desk. A reminder. These weren't just citizens. They were family. "We've tried diplomacy," Vorn said quietly, voice low and dangerous. "We've begged for answers." His second-in-command, Colonel Mendez, nodded. "They're not listening." Vorn turned toward the center display. A live feed of fleet mobilizations blinked to life. Earth's moon yards lighting up with ship activity, Mars activating its long-idle dreadnoughts. Human colonies transmitting encrypted battle codes. "We warned them what would happen if they ever touched us," Vorn said. He tapped the console. The display showed the Terran supercarrier Valkyrie launching from orbit, its engines roaring blue fire. "Now," he growled, "we show them what it means to make an enemy of humanity. Steel beneath the skin." The war room beneath Mount Tion was silent. A low hum of consoles filled the air, broken only by the occasional clipped command. The world outside still turned, oblivious to the storm gathering beneath its surface. General Elias Vorn stood with arms crossed, staring at the glowing display hovering before him. Dots blinked across the holographic star map, each one representing a Terran warship, activated, fueled, and loaded. Humanity's rage had gone dark for 10 days, but its memory was long, and its vengeance was precise. Behind him, Colonel Mendez entered with a datapad in hand. Operation Ember Fist is ready. Strike Team Theta 9 has already infiltrated Zareth space. They've located a holding facility on Damo Station, near the fringe border. Born didn't turn. Any of our people confirmed? 5. One alive. The rest not intact. The silence that followed was heavier than the Martian gravity training chambers. Vorn finally turned, his eyes hard, colder than the void. We go in, quiet, fast, and we leave a message they'll never forget. Damos Station floated in the void like a rusting tumor. Officially labeled a bioresearch outpost, it was little more than a dungeon built for dissecting lesser species. No defenses, no beacons, not meant to be found. Until now, Theta 9 breached the outer ring with surgical precision. Clad in adaptive stealth suits, the human operatives moved like shadows. No alarms, no witnesses. Inside the dim halls, the smell hit first, sterile chemicals mixed with something more primal. Blood, fear, despair. Sergeant Mira Lorne led the charge. Her visor fed her data in real time. 6 life signs ahead for humanoid, 2 Zareth. She raised a gloved fist, signaling halt. With a flick of her wrist, 2 drones peeled off, entering through the air vents. A quiet THMP sounded moments later. All clear, whispered her second. They breached the lab door with a hiss. Inside, 4 human girls lay strapped to examination tables, unconscious but breathing. Monitors tracked vital signs, all spiked with foreign chemical inputs. At the far end, a female, older than the rest, sat upright, bloodied but defiant. She looked up at Mira with wild eyes. Took you long enough. Mira allowed herself a smile. You'll live. We better, the girl rasped. I've memorized everything they did. Every experiment. Every torture. You get me to Earth, I'll give you names. They got out in under 7 minutes. On the way out, Mira planted a device on the central server core. It wasn't an explosive, it was worse. The virus it released transmitted everything to the galactic net. Video footage of the experiments, audio logs of Zareth scientists describing human female viability, live biometrics of the kidnapped girls, and recordings of their screams. By the time Theta 9 returned to their stealth frigate, the footage had reached not just Earth, but every major species in the Galactic Council. 3 days later, the galaxy burned with outrage and fear. The Zareth Empire tried to deny the evidence, claiming the footage was fabricated, but the damage was done. Protests erupted on neutral planets. Allied races quietly severed trade routes with the Empire. A few even offered assistance to the humans, covertly. And Earth? Earth didn't speak. It acted. A week after the footage went viral, the Valkyrie arrived at the edge of Zareth territory. From its hangars poured over 50 Terran warships, all dark gray, bristling with weapons and vengeance. No warning was given, no declaration of war, only action. They struck the outer colony of Virex 3 first, a known slave processing center. Human marines breached the walls with magnetic lances, cutting through guards like blades through silk. No civilians were harmed, no buildings leveled needlessly, but the slave masters? Gone, erased. On every wall, they left the same message in blood-red paint. You took our daughters. Now we take your future. In the Galactic Council's high chamber, the Zareth delegation demanded sanctions. They are savages, Lord Commander Tfel hissed. They know no restraint. The Council remained silent. Even those who once scoffed at humans now stared at the screens in awe. What they saw in the humans wasn't savagery. It was clarity, a species that remembered every slight. That didn't just survive oppression, but transformed it into calculated wrath. A representative from the Darluan Confederacy, long neutral in conflicts, leaned forward. "Perhaps," he said softly, "the Empire should not have touched their young." Back on Earth, General Vorn stood once again at his command deck. He watched the stars shift on the display, each one a step closer to the heart of the Zareth Empire. His voice was cold steel. "Next target, Zareth Border Fortress. Defensive hub for 3 core systems," Mendez replied. "Hit it. Break them." The Terran storm. The Zareth Border Fortress, Karith's shield, had stood for over 400 cycles. Built into a moon-sized asteroid and armed with planetary defense arrays, it was considered impenetrable. It had repelled pirate armadas, silenced rebellions, and stood unshaken through centuries of war. Until the humans arrived. The Terran fleet didn't announce themselves. No standard galactic hailing. No warnings. The Valkyrie emerged from warp first, followed by a silent wave of destroyers and corvettes, matte black, angular, and eerily quiet in the void. They didn't look like peacekeepers. They looked like executioners. Inside the fortress, Commander Vec Thull barked orders. "Target the lead vessel. Bring plasma cannons online. We'll show these apes what real power is." The order came too late. Terran ships didn't move like anything in the Empire's databases. They'd been inertia, skipped momentum, darting like shadows. And they didn't engage in long-range jousting like most galactic navies. They closed. Fast. Within seconds, boarding pods slammed into the fortress like steel wasps. Magnetic grapples pierced hull plating, and then came the Terra Marines, clad in exo-rigs, eyes glowing behind black visors. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They were here to end things. Vec Thull watched through the central feed as his forces collapsed. His elite guards, trained for decades, were torn apart in seconds. The humans moved in coordinated, brutal silence. Flashbangs, pulse blades, smart shotguns that adjusted mid-fire. They didn't take prisoners. What truly unnerved Vec Thull wasn't the weapons. It was the expressionless precision. These weren't berserkers. They weren't glory-seeking warriors. They were fathers, brothers, humans, stripped of mercy, sharpened by grief. Vec Thull barely made it to the escape corridor when a Terra Marine dropped in front of him from the ceiling, landing with a heavy thud. The Zareth commander fired instinctively, but the plasma bolts splashed harmlessly off the Marine's kinetic shield. A fist came next. Darkness followed. On the bridge of the Valkyrie, General Elias Vorn watched the red blips on the holomap flicker and die. Status. Colonel Mendez nodded from his terminal. Fortress secured. 98% infrastructure intact. All slave pens shut down. Zareth military personnel eliminated. Minimal civilian casualties. Vorn let out a breath, slow and deliberate. Broadcast the footage. Make sure the council sees how we fight. And make sure they see why. Hours later, the broadcast reached every civilized corner of the galaxy. Footage of the Terran strike played in sharp clarity. Humans disabling defense arrays, liberating imprisoned species, destroying genetic labs, and executing high-ranking Zareth officers with quiet efficiency. One clip, in particular, went viral. Footage of a Terran soldier helping a young alien child into a rescue shuttle, his voice calm, his hands gentle. This wasn't random carnage. It was vengeance with purpose. And the galaxy began to whisper. Perhaps the humans were right. Perhaps we let the Empire grow too arrogant. Perhaps it's time for change. In a secret chamber deep within the Zareth Imperial Palace, the High Circle met in panic. 12 figures sat around a levitating stone table, each a representative of ancient Zareth bloodlines. Emperor Zervac sat at the head, robes flowing like liquid obsidian, his eyes shadowed beneath his crown. They destroyed Karith's shield, hissed Counselor Drem. "They are monsters," said another. "They butcher without remorse." "They have reason," said a quiet voice from the end of the table. All heads turned. High Lady Valari, youngest of the circle and one of the few with direct knowledge of human culture, looked pale. "They took our girls. They came for their daughters. Would we have done differently? Her words hung in the air like a guillotine. Zervak's voice finally rumbled. Then what do you suggest? Surrender? Valari didn't blink. I suggest you beg. On the edge of Zareth space, more Terran fleets emerged. The humans no longer moved tactically. They moved strategically. With each system they took, they left infrastructure intact, but burned down the symbols of Zareth control. Statues toppled, banners torn, slave collars melted in public squares. And everywhere they went, they asked one question. Where are our girls? Back aboard the Valkyrie, General Vorn stood in front of a new map. It showed Zareth Prime, the heart of the Empire. He tapped the display once. Begin the siege plan. No orbital bombardments. We're going in. Mendez raised a brow. All the way to the throne. To the throne, Vorn said. Into the prisons. His hand clenched behind his back. We're not done until every daughter is home. Their final mistake. Zareth Prime burned. Not from fire, but from fear. The skies above the Imperial capital, once home to elegant warships and ceremonial fleets, now shimmered with the silhouette of the Terran armada. Silent, imposing, patient. For 3 days, they remained in orbit. No bombardment, no ultimatums, just the shadow of Earth hanging overhead like a closing fist. Inside the palace, Emperor Zervak paced across the obsidian chamber floor. The stone vibrated with distant explosions. Outlying garrisons falling, resistance collapsing block by block. His voice snarled at his advisors. Why haven't they attacked the core? They're within striking range. They're waiting, whispered High Lady Valari, because they want us to see them, to feel every moment of it. On the ground, the Terran 9th Assault Division deployed into the capital like a scalpel. No indiscriminate fire, no civilian targets. They moved with restraint, but also with absolute control. General Elias Vorn led from the front, his armor battered from the campaign, his rifle slung across his back. He didn't need a weapon today. He needed his daughter. The Imperial Palace was a monument to Zareth pride, spires of living crystal and stone grown over centuries, untouched by war. Until now, the first Terran shells landed on the outer gates with surgical precision. No razing, just demolition of defenses. Drones poured into the corridors, mapping the palace in real time. Behind them came the strike teams. Vorn's boots echoed as he crossed the Great Hall, now strewn with shattered banners and dead silence. His team swept through the halls, room by room, chamber by chamber, until they reached the dungeons. He recognized the doors. From a footage. From nightmares. They breached the gate. And there she was. Maria. Bruised. Pale. But standing. She stared at her father, disbelief etched into her face. Dad. His voice cracked for the first time in years. I told you I'd find you. She ran to him, and for a moment, war didn't exist. The cold armor, the rage, the vengeance, it all fell away as he held his daughter. Behind them, dozens of other girls stepped from the shadows, blinking in the sudden light. Survivors. Fighters. Victims who refused to die. Some wore Zareth armor stolen from their captors. Some clutched makeshift blades. One girl dragged a stunned noblewoman behind her in chains. They hadn't waited for rescue. They had been fighting from within. The throne room was the final stop. Vorn entered alone. Emperor Zervak sat slouched on the grand throne, his crown cracked, his robes in disarray, flanked by only 2 surviving guards. He looked less like a ruler and more like a ruin. You've made your point, he spat. You've proved your savagery. Vorn didn't answer. He stepped forward and tossed something at the Emperor's feet. A collar, human-sized, engraved with the Zareth crest. Zervak's gaze faltered. I don't want your crown, Vorn said coldly. I don't want your empire. He raised his sidearm. I want justice. The single gunshot echoed through the throne chamber like thunder. 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. But this time, Earth wasn't begging for answers. It was delivering them. Ambassador Reyes stood before the assembly, now hushed and attentive. Behind her stood survivors of the abduction, some in formal wear, some still bearing scars. They said nothing. Their presence was enough. Reyes spoke simply. We're not conquerors. We don't need your thrones or your riches. We came for our people. She paused, scanning the chamber. And if you ever try to take them again, we won't stop at your palaces. We'll wipe your names from history. The silence that followed was total. No protests, no objections, just respect and fear. Back on Earth, beneath a quiet sunrise, General Vorn stood in a small cemetery on the outskirts of New Boston. Maria stood beside him, holding a bouquet of white synth roses. They placed it on a grave marked with a simple name, Ava Carter, age 17. Taken. Avenged. She didn't make it, Maria said softly. She didn't go down alone, Vorn replied. They stood in silence, not as soldiers or survivors, but as family. Because Earth had bled, but it had not broken. And now, the galaxy knew. You do not touch humanity.